Showing compassion is hard because compassion, it's more than just caring. Compassion is actually caring enough to do something about someone else's needs. And it's the needs of others that makes compassion tough. You see, we feel like we don't have that much to give, and we're probably right. But the good news of compassion is it's meant to be done in partnership with God. God has more than enough to meet the needs of others. He just needs somebody to care enough. This week, we take a look at John chapter 6 at a small child who had small resources, but was able to meet a massive need. How did he do it? Well, he had the superpower of compassion. And it was his ability to care enough to do something that made it possible for his small resources to meet the massive needs of others. This week's bottom line is, use what you have to help others. Hey guys, I'm gonna show you some compassion and I'm gonna make this a super short video, I hope. So I want to encourage you to read John chapter 6, the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000s with the little boy's lunch. There's all kinds of application to showing compassion in this story. Jesus showed compassion, the kids showed compassion. It's a great story. It almost teaches itself if we are able to just simply use what we have. Now, our first activity is called a crossword Bible story review, and each kid is going to get a crossword puzzle. These will be in your boxes, and what you're going to do is you're going to give kids the pencils to use and the Bible to use to look up the answers, and just let the kids go, let them try it out. Tell them to take their time, but use the Bible to get the correct answers. In other words, use what they have. Now, some of these are very specific questions, so they will actually need to look up in the Bible and see what the answers are. And then after you're done with that, wrap up the activity with a quick review of the story, basically what they just wrote in the crossword puzzle. And encourage them that you guys did a great job using what you have to show compassion, and remind them that God's always given us everything we need to lead a godly life. Last month's memory verse, and one of those things is compassion. So we all have the ability to care enough to do something about someone else's needs. Our next activity is called Memory Verse Fishing, and of course it's our memory verse activity, so you want to pull out the Bible again, open up to Micah 6:8, encourage one of the kids to read it aloud to the group, and then you're going to break your group up into 2 to 3 teams. Now each team is going to get a stack of these memory verse fishing cards, which will be cut up in your binder, and on the back of each one will be a magnet or a piece of metal. And then each team is going to get a stack of that, and they're going to get a fishing pole, which is going to be a stick with a string with a magnet on the end. And then you are going to place these memory verse strips into a pile on one side of the room, and your groups are going to line up on the other side of the room, and it's basically going to be a relay style race getting the verses out of the stream. And so this is what's going to happen. When you say go, one person at a time leaves each group and goes with their fishing pole, goes fishing, grabs one memory verse phrase and pulls it out and brings it back to their group, and the group is going to have either a cookie sheet or some kind of magnetic whiteboard, and they're going to put the verse on the board or the cookie sheet, and when that's done, the next person can go. And so basically it's a race to see who can go fishing, get all the verses, and put it back in order the fastest. Now, before you do this game, remind them of what Micah 6:8 is trying to tell us. That we should love being merciful, that we should look to people and be kind. And so remind them of Micah 6:8 before you play the game, and encourage them to live out Micah 6:8 during this competitive game. Because sometimes people can get rough when it comes to competition, because all we can focus on is winning. But Micah 6:8 tells us that God wants us to focus on being kind, being caring, being loving, being gracious to others. That's what God wants us to focus on. So remind them of that before you play the game, and then play the game. And you want to wrap this activity up with a reminder that we should use what we have to help others. Just because they're young doesn't mean they can't meet the needs of others, because God has given them everything that they need. And for kids at this age, sometimes it's a word of encouragement. Sometimes it's just being kind and compassionate. We don't have to actually physically give anybody anything. Sometimes it's just our words and our attention. That is what they have, so encourage them to use what they have. Final activity is pray and dismiss, and it references an activity that we did not do. So instead, this is what I encourage you to do. Get everybody around the table or in a circle and go around the room one at a time and ask them, name me one of your talents or your strengths, and go around the room. And then go around a second time and ask each person, how can you use your strength or talent to help someone this week? And then give them a chance to answer. Now this is pray and dismiss, so you might be pinched for time. So if you need to push it along, then maybe just call on 3 or 4 people and then have everybody else think about what they're good at and how they can use it to help someone this week. And then you tell them, okay, I'm gonna pray that God helps you use what you have to help someone this week. And I really want you to emphasize this week. These are handles for our kids. These are expectations for our kids. And if you think about it, maybe in the beginning of small group, ask them, hey, did you guys show compassion to anybody? You know, you might come across some really cool testimonies. You just never know if you don't ask. But really emphasize, do something this week, because we really want them to experience God's compassion moving through them as they're reaching out and caring enough to do something about someone else's needs that they see. And so wrap up in prayer and emphasize, God, I pray that they would do this specific thing this week.